God falls into your stride. On afternoon walks, you often long to bump into someone promising. So you're not surprised when one day God falls into your stride. She asks why you take your broken heart with you, why you don't simply escape, slip into scenery like an incidental figure in a Corellic landscape. You don't have to be somebody. She points at a cloud of crows, suggests you give away your darkness. At a puddle skimmed with ice, she shows how you could freeze the pain. You explain that adding up your footsteps day after day is giving you distance, but she claims all you need to do is lose distinction. Blend in with some spruce, lift your arms, slow your pulse, turn a lighter shade of green. Notice that breeze, she shivers. It will eventually crowd you out. You can't imagine the world without you. Who'd carry all this feeling? A smidgen for the dull December sun, a dab for the cedar fences, a handful for the squirrels who will run and bury it. Shaking her head, God says, I love you. Isn't that enough? You could wrap yourself in bark and river chill, drop your heart into the undergrowth like one more cracked chestnut. But who will walk with you then, I ask, knowing how few people listen with their loneliness intact? The air, she answers, throwing her hands out from her body, letting them drift back in again. More than you realize. The white bowls brimming with pasta are sheer appetite, as are the basket of bread, the glistening peppers, plump purple grapes. It's all about your body with its funny fuel gauges and miles of emptiness. You are as basic as fingers, lips, and teeth, as far away from mystery as biology can get, pure mechanics of chew and swallow. But then someone mentions God guesting on a Star Trek rerun, and you remember you're going to die. Not during this dinner, but one day, when not even a plate of Spanish olives or a deep dish of creme brulee will convince you to stick around. Your body will abdicate, reduced to a space so thin it might as well be invisible, exactly like all the other afterlives. Is it any wonder your fork freezes, your mouth emptied of everything but longing? You think immediately of love, how little it's added up. And those three sisters, wish, dream, desire, if only you could have married them. Don't forget the man you can't stop trying to be. Doesn't he deserve to know how loyal you are? Time to be more than you realize, to go beyond that sci-fi hunger for eternal life. Pick up your spoon and start digging for the china pattern, the buried roses. Flip over your teacup and watch the future take shape. Cut open your own heart and feast on the bottomless pain. Chickadees. You hear what sounds like a plaintive choir. Wonder if a pine's clusters of cones are keening, or the needles themselves softening their prickles. Something always at odds with something else. You gaze deeper, Spot the chickadees, 2 or more to a branch, sweet cheeps. Perhaps it's you they're lamenting, your trunk-like legs, your flightless arms, or simple lack of love, no suet in the shape of bells. You check your jacket pocket for non-existent crumbs, whistle back an apology shrill enough to be mistaken for a threat. A few flit to the rear of the tree, while others raise the temperature with shaky warbles. You are less than a witness here. Try loving that, the moment including you only as scenery. Just a swirl of dust, a sign that another day of creation is about to burst. Move on, drag your legs into trails leading nowhere. Leave the tiny griefs alone. Their cries resurrect a time when even the trees were made of air, when the planet was all bird. Him. He is behind the wheel of the car beside her, staring at the red traffic light as if it were one of life's big questions, ignoring the fact she can't take her eyes off him. He's also in the car ahead of her, shunning his rear-view mirror. Sightings accumulate, her life list growing like a veil of shadows. That's him at the side of the road, changing a tire with easy twists of his wrist. Him on the bridge, crossing from one confidence to another. All those glimpses she can't quite reach, all those strangers he becomes. As she enters the web of inner city streets, he's everywhere, sipping something in a cafe window, slinging an arm around a pal's shoulder, squeezing himself sideways into a phone booth, talking to air. As she turns into the Bedford parking lot, she spots him leaning against an orange brick wall, holding a paleness close to his skin, engrossed in the tiny face of his watch. If he's thinking about her at all, it's her passing, the metal breeze she leaves as she drives towards the sloping gate. How essential he is to her keeps him on the move, guarantees his ubiquity. Without her longing, he'd be sealed in an unseen room, losing track of himself with every thrust, every shift of direction. Some losses come equipped with eyes and legs, enough humanness to populate a city. He asks for her license plate at the gatehouse, even scribbles it down on the blank side of an unripped ticket. She's nothing but a disembodied hand, reaching out for change. A pair of silver rings he mistakes for miniature skids of light, where her needs vanish and his distance begins. Mount Rundle. Imagine a dot of a man on a postcard of Mount Rundle, how it feels to face his meagerness. Not even his red sweatshirt has a chance against the towering gray and white. And what if he's lost, wandering down Caribou searching for a drugstore, the Banff air scraping his sinuses? A left turn segues into a right, then a second left, the whole town shifting for another shot of celebrated scenery, for that wish you were here. Little does he know he's being watched, smaller than everything else. Perhaps he's missing his wife back in Ontario, but it's a miniature longing at best. Nowhere near the all-encompassing slopes of Rundle, where tenacity has barely budged for thousands of years. On a scale of grand to nothing, the man is the closest a decimal point can come to zero, the head of a pin opening its mouth. Ambition, lust, terror, all former confidants, no longer have the space to flourish. Rundle makes room only for worship, that demanding loss of self. Imagine how many postcards it would take to give God a face, how long the man would have to stand there, ghost in eternity's open shutter. The rest of his red life, one tiny disappearance after another. Bittersweet. The bittersweet is so sure of itself, spilling and slithering across the deck. Vines of it wind around each other like the telephone cords of 1960s teenaged girls. If you stood out of reach for a few minutes, one shoot would stretch the distance, grab you by the wrist, pull you tighter than breaking points. Before you could say, I'm already married, or I'm just not into plants, you'd be indistinguishable from a thicket. And so you cut it back, break its boldness, shears dripping green all over your feet. No way will you let yourself be that easy. Just yesterday you veered into the passing lane when the Corolla ahead got brazen with its rear view mirror. You steered away from the hungry bank teller whose fingers lingered on that final 20. You've even made it clear to the universe you love yourself like a brother, nothing more. Not a word from the dreamer who keeps hugging strangers in those plotless middles of the night, or the rose boy with his fake thorns, or the old geezer who can take out his own heart, grin like a sloppy incision. Your lips are sealed, poor neglected things, though they long secretly for a brave orange kiss, a shock of entanglement. In your fantasy you stop your snipping, ask the maitre d' for a deck chair. It only takes seconds for the vines to find the shape of your eager arms. Hold me, you say, no longer holding back. Green on green, berry to berry, a leaf wrapped around a finger, a stem in place of that missing rib.